Hello everybody, it is Ross and welcome to the 1% Daily Podcast. If you're new to the show, welcome. It's 1% of your day, and that is 14 minutes and 24 seconds, and that's exactly how long the podcast is supposed to finish. It's supposed to be, but it never quite works out exactly 14 minutes and 24 seconds, but it's pretty much bang on the money. That's why at the end of this podcast you'll hear me quickly wrap up the show, finish and bounce out, because it is just 1% of your day. And the idea based around this is to try and allow yourself to be of greater value to those around you by putting yourself first. And if that means listening to me talk for 1% of your day and hopefully share some insights and add some value to your life, then it is an absolute winner, and I'll be happy to share that with you today. So the whole basis for today's talk, it's a really cool expression I heard. I don't know if I heard it on a podcast itself, or I might have I don't know where I saw it, but the quote goes, when you come under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you must descend to the level of your training. And for me, this completely just resonated massive with me, because you will have come across loads of things in your life where you've kind of gone, right, okay, where am I right now? How am I experiencing this time? Am I being present? Is it something that I feel comfortable with? And you will always revert back to a state. And that state will usually be something that you're used to. So for me, when I was playing basketball, it was the kind of philosophy was train hard, play easy. Then that became a mantra for when I was with the Marines, train hard, fight easy. And then it became a mantra that was with my Ironman training, triathlon training, train hard, make the sessions as hard as you can, and then allow the actual race, the performance, to be easy. But actually this just goes for everything in life. And I heard this quote, I instantly recorded it and saved it to my reminders, and I was like, right, I need to get this as a podcast, because I've got some really cool stories about how this has impacted me previously in my life, but also how I approach new things moving forward. So the first example I could think about this was when I remember, so you're going back now, 2005. So for those who don't know, I'm with the Royal Marines Commando Reserves, and I've actually had like a bit of an in and out relationship with the Marines for quite a while. So back in 2005, I started young officers training, and as part of the interview process for YO training, it's called, I had an interview, and I remember being asked the age-old question of, what would you do if you were faced with the sort of situation where you had to kill somebody? And I guess I gave kind of like the bog standard response of, well, I'd like to think my training would take over and I wouldn't have to think about it. And actually that goes for everything that we have in life. So how you respond to your kids' behavior, how you respond to your wife or your husband's comments, good and bad, how you respond to the people that you work with in the environment. These are all situations that you are given an opportunity to respond to. What happens is, quite often, if we're not in a good place, we can react. And that's the bit that's actually not very good, because reactions are not so much in control. Responses, actually, you're in control of that, and your training or your previous experiences take over. And I heard something, I think it was on the podcast, or a book I'm listening to this morning. We have something like 10,000 decisions we make every day, like basic decisions. And actually a lot of these decisions are based around routines and habits. Now again, these routines and habits can be both good and bad. So you can be in a good place with your morning routines, you can be in a bad place with your morning routines. And actually as an adult, as a human, we like to take the path of least resistance. So whatever's going to be easiest, we will choose to go down that route. Now that doesn't always pay benefits to where we want to go in life, what we want to do. So it's really important that we find scenarios where we can actually make ourselves feel uncomfortable. So yeah, back to what I was talking about, the YO training. They asked me about how I'd feel about killing somebody, and that response of, well, I'd like to think my training would take over, that basically allowed me in that situation, had I ever be faced with it, to not be in control of it. Because if I was to then, in that given situation of being faced with an enemy, am I going to be killed or kill that other person? Well, obviously, I'd like to think that if my training doesn't kick in, I'm more than likely going to be on the wrong end of something coming from this enemy. And this goes to the same in life. I'm not saying it's necessarily life or death in that example, from the example I've just given you. Life's obviously not like that. But the more time you take to make a decision, the more chance you have of it necessarily not being the right decision, okay? Because if you've never been in a situation and then you react quickly, you may give a sort of off-the-cuff remark or an off-the-cuff response. That can get you in trouble. It's finding that happy medium between the time it takes to respond appropriately and then too much time where you've overthunk it, you've overcomplicated it. As adults and humans, we love to overcomplicate stuff. And what we need to do is we need to allow ourselves to have experienced that moment in time previously in a controlled environment, so then we're able to react appropriately. So this is how kids learn to speak to adults, learn to speak to other children. I'll take Bear to the soft play when he was younger, and this happens all the time in schools. And I was a teacher for 10 years, and what would happen is you'd have a year group, and in that year group there'd be maybe 5 or 6 alpha males, and these would be guys who would be trying to dominate the rest of the peer group through their size, their behavior, and how they influence each other. Now what would happen is the parents and the staff would step in too early and try and control all of the alpha males. So then there was actually no natural pecking order. So actually everybody thought they could do what they wanted. So it actually became a little bit of chaos. So I'd see this all the time when I used to take Bear and Ira to soft play. Bear needed to understand that he can't walk into the basketball court and just pick up a football and walk out with it. He needs another older boy, older girl to come over, grab the ball back off him and say no. I mean, if the guy that grabs him and then punches him, yeah, then I'm going to step in. But Bear needs to understand that he needs to have the peers around him influence his behaviour and let him experience these things. That's how we learn. That's how we learn as children, and that's also how we learn as adults. So how we conduct ourselves in different environments is influenced by our experiences. So if we never put ourselves in uncomfortable experiences, if we never put ourselves into positions where we're learning, when we are then faced with a new situation, a new scenario, or a time and place where we need to have a certain set of skills or understanding that we've not learned, we then can become unstuck, okay? So the idea is that the whole premise of train hard, race easy goes for life as well, okay? So you need to put yourself in the position of pain and discomfort, okay? So for example, another example they do, again, time away with the Royal Marines, we'll do live firing drills. So you'll do target acquisition, and you'll fire live rounds. But then we'll also do stuff in killing houses and in different scenarios where we're using blank rounds. Now the problem is blank rounds don't hurt. So we may do room clearances, and special forces do this, and police services use this. They will do room clearances where they'll have enemies and bad guys in there. And if you're only using blanks, you'd be surprised how quickly you are to recognise that you're only using blanks. You can actually get shot, so you start to make different decisions. So you may walk across a corridor where you wouldn't normally walk across a corridor if somebody was going to be firing live bullets at you. So what they do is they use a thing called Simunition, and Simunition is it's a type of round that is put into your weapon, fed into your weapon with your magazine, and it fires. It's like really, really hard BB guns, and it comes out of paint, and this stuff will pierce your skin. You know, I've got scars where I've been zipped up with them, and I've been zapped in the back of my arms, where I've been sort of nicked with these things. I've gone through my clothes, and what happens is when you know there's going to be pain or discomfort coming, your decision making becomes quicker and faster, and you make better decisions. And obviously the transition of that is when you go into live firing with the enemy, then you would make better decisions. Now this goes for life as well, okay? This goes for everything that you do in everyday life. If you're comfortable all the time and you are not putting yourself in a position of pain or discomfort, then when you are sort of set up into those scenarios, it's more than likely not going to go your way, okay? So the old adage of train hard, race easy, it is really true. I mean, and it does ring true. So in life, you'll have moments where you don't like to be outside of your comfort zone. And a friend of mine, James Ashford, he described it as your familiar zone. We like to get comfortable stuff that we're familiar with, okay? And we will have these scenarios where we just do what's normal and what's comfortable. And actually that doesn't grow us and that doesn't develop us as a person. So think of anything in your life that you want to improve on. If you want to read more books, if you want to become a better athlete, if you want to have a better relationship with your husband or your wife or with your kids, or you want to be better with money, are you seeking out moments of discomfort and pain based around those areas in your life that then allow you to learn. Okay, so for example, if I want to be a better swimmer, I will go and hang out with better swimmers. If I want to be a better runner, I'll hang out with better runners. If I want to be a better cyclist, I will hang out with better cyclists. It goes the same for anything. So I guess what happens nicely, this ties back to your definition of success. And if you've never defined what success looks like for you, this will be harder to do. But if you've got some areas in your life that you know you want to improve on, so for example, you want to be a better parent, or you want to be, I don't know, have a better career or run a business, what you need to do is you need to find the people who are already doing what you want to do, and then try and copy their behaviors. So whether it's spark up a conversation with them, whether it's engage them on a one-to-one, whether it's ask for help, you need to learn from what they're doing. But you also need to be challenged and constantly being pressured, because that's where the change happens. You know, they talk about a diamond being formed over thousands of years of pressure, okay? And that's what happens when you're put into these pressured situations. The good comes out in you, because you can be more authentic, you can be more real, your responses are more than likely going to be suitable for that moment in time. But the caveat with that is only if you've experience those yourself, okay? So I use the example of training hard and racing easy, okay? So I knew when I raced in Copenhagen back in 2016, I remember my dad saying to me, we'd done the race, first Ironman, and we were talking about the race going through the airport at the end of the holiday, and my dad was like, I can't believe you raced as well as you did, Ross. And I was like, what do you mean? And so for reference, I raced a 10 hours 15. So for somebody who's new to Ironman and we're doing their first Ironman, anything around 10 hours is good. And my dad said to me, he goes, I can't believe that you did that well considering. And I was like, what do you mean considering? He said, every time I called you up, Ross, you would tell me all the training you'd not done. And this was true. If I had to go back and map out the exact minimum amount of training to do to get a good result, I must have found that sort of formula. But I said to my dad, I said, actually, I was never in doubt that I was going to do a good time or have a good race. I didn't know what the time was going to be like, but I knew I was going to have a good race, because I knew, so looking back at swim, bike and run, previously in the year running up to my race, my swim was always going to be okay. I knew I was going to swim around an hour and a couple of minutes. Excuse me, and I think I swam about an hour and 2 minutes, which is pretty decent. It's okay. And I knew my swim was always going to be around that. The bike and the run that for me became a mental thing. So in the run up to the race, I'd been asked to do the Manchester Marathon at the beginning of the year. So I think the Manchester Marathon must have been like maybe February or March. And I'd done a little bit of winter training, but nothing major. I got a phone call on a Friday saying, Ross, there's a spare ticket for the Manchester Marathon. Do you want it? I was like, yeah, I'll do the Manchester Marathon. That'd be brilliant. So I took the Manchester Marathon with 2 days' notice. I think I ran a 3:30. It wasn't a great race. All I know is the last 40 minutes of my race were the worst I'd ever felt on a race. The worst I'd ever felt in a race. So I knew from a psychological perspective, I could hurt on the run. From the bike perspective, I'd only rode one 100-mile bike ride. The Ironman bike ride is 112 miles. And it was with my friend Dean. It was a time trial we were doing. I'd sat on his wheel for about 40, maybe 45 miles, 50 miles. I then got dropped and had to spend the second half of the race in an absolute world of pain in no man's land, hanging out. And I went to the darkest places that I'd ever been to on my bike. This then meant when it came to my race that I knew my swim would be okay. I knew I'd hang out on the bike, but if I didn't get to how I felt in the time trial with Dean, I'd be okay. Then when it came to the run, I just knew as long as I didn't knock on that door of how bad I felt for the Manchester Marathon, I knew I was going to be okay. And it came together, and I managed to pull out of the bag a pretty decent marathon, a pretty decent Ironman. So I really had put myself into these tough experiences, these tough moments in time, in practice and in training. And this goes for the real time for you. So the takeaway from today, because we've run out of time, is I want you to seek out those moments of controlled positive adversity, okay? Those moments where you just need to go and hang out a little bit. You need to be pressurized and pushed to the extremes, okay? Surround yourself with people who allow you to do that, who push you and test you, okay? And I want you to think about seeking out those moments, okay? Monitoring those moments, use those moments, review those moments, and learn from those moments. And that will make you better at the thing you're trying to improve on. Guys, this has been Roscoe. This has been the 1% Daily Show. Remember, life is one big game. Make sure you play it your way and maximize your potential. Thank you. Bye-bye.